I spent the majority of my 20s Peter panning through life as a pseudo professional rock climber. It sounds really glorious. It means that I was traveling around climbing a lot of rocks. I was obsessed with getting to the top of different cliff faces. Like for a period of my life, all I could think about at night when I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling was imagining these cliff faces in front of me and imagining the microscopic holds upon which you would cling as you ascend this mountain. And there's something about that was so powerful for me and so all consuming. For somebody with ADHD, when the entirety of your existence and your focus is distilled to a couple of inches of rock, just, a foot in front of your face, and these microscopic holds that you're standing and holding on to, clinging for dear life, there's something that's so freeing about the focus that comes from that experience. And I loved it. I loved rock climbing. I still do. But for many years, I couldn't really identify what it was about climbing in particular that was so alluring. Why it was. Lionel Thierry, he called us conquistadors of the useless. He's like, what's the point of climbing a mountain? At the end of the day, what's the point of going up there to this place that nobody else has been, that nobody else is going to be there to clap for you, that nobody else is even going to care? And I can't remember, I'm forgetting his name now, but famously, it was Hillary. When he ascended Everest, he said, we climb because the mountain calls, or we go because the mountain beckons. And there's just a pull to challenge, to obstacle, to challenging yourself against Mother Nature that is so intoxicating. And quite often, we would go climbing in these national parks, say like Yosemite, and there would be all these tourists. They'd come along and they'd see us climbing on these rocks. Sometimes it's the really big, proud 3,000-foot cliff faces like El Capitan, right? But sometimes we would partake in this activity called bouldering. And bouldering is very interesting to most people because a boulder is really just a big piece of rock that you can climb without ropes. And if you fall, you land on a foam mattress. And you can get pretty messed up, pretty hurt, because like sometimes these rocks can be like 20, 25, 30, 40 feet, right? But most of the time when we're climbing these boulders, they're like between 10 and 20 feet. So it's a very kind of contained, controlled environment. And the tourists would come by as they see us out there on these rocks trying to climb this blank face. And they would always say, there's an easier way to get to the top if you just go around the back. And that's the interesting thing about boulders and mountains and cliffs is that there's always an easier way to get to the top. And for climbers, the top actually wasn't the goal. It was the path to the top. Because I've climbed on El Capitan, for instance, right? El Capitan isn't just one route. There's hundreds of routes on El Capitan. And as soon as you climb the one, you're now thinking, maybe I want to try that one that's 200 feet over there. Same cliff face, different path to the top. And so you develop this approach to rock climbing into life that the destination is irrelevant, that really what we're after is the journey and that experience of testing ourselves against this unique path up the rock. Now, I share all that to kind of lay the groundwork for a concept I want to share with you guys today, which has helped me a lot in business and just in life in general, which is in bouldering, we have a particular name for the routes that we climb. Now, when we climb a cliff, we call it a route. For whatever reason, when you climb a boulder, we call it a problem. So instead of saying, hey, did you do that route or this route or that route, we ask, hey, did you do that problem? And they all have different names, right? That one might be called the Three Musketeers, and that one might be called Zorro, because we like naming things weirdly. But each one is fundamentally a problem. And I find this a really interesting term because the question is, what is the problem that we're there to solve? So let's say I want to climb Zorro. I go over to Zorro. What's the problem to be solved? Well, for a long time, I took it to mean that the rock was the problem. The rock was the obstacle. And so I had to figure out, how do I ascend this piece of face? And it took me a long time to realize that it's actually the wrong way of looking at it. The boulder problem, the face, the cliff, isn't the issue. That's not actually the obstacle. The problem that I have to solve for is how am I going to adapt myself to this objective reality that is the rock? Because the rock is not changing. It's not transforming from moment to moment. The only thing that can change in relation to it is me and what I do and how I react to it. And how I react to it will dictate whether I ascend it or I fall. And I find this to be a really beautiful metaphor for life, because life is that objective cliff face. It is the boulder problem. It is the rock that is not changing. All that can change is you in relation to the reality, and how you change and grow will dictate the progress that you make. And so what it took me a long time to learn is that the rock is not the problem. You are the problem. And each time you are approaching a new cliff, a new boulder, you are asking yourself, how am I going to adapt myself to this objective reality? And the more that you realize in life and in business that you are always the problem, it's not the rock, it's not the business, it's not the market, that it's you. And that if you had the right skills, resources, beliefs, network, whatever, if you had all of that, if you had the right answer to the problem, you could solve it. And so it's not the problem, it's not the thing in front of you that's the issue, it's you and your ability to adapt to it. And if you can solve that, then everything else will fall into place. And I encourage you to think about this, because my experience has been business is nothing more than the systematic process of exposing my own limitations, my own inadequacies. So if you can't grow a business, it's because you don't know how to market, or you don't know how to sell, or you don't know how to build a team, or you don't know how to do the financials, or you don't know how to do X, Y, and Z, right? You are the problem, full stop, in every dimension of your life. And I think that is maybe the most powerful belief that I can share with you. And in my experience, the people who are getting ahead in life are the ones who take radical accountability for that idea. And they look at every situation and say, I'm the problem here. What do I need to do to change it? And the people who are struggling the most, and I was one of these people for a really long time, the people who struggle the most are the ones that look around and point to everybody else as being the problem. And they're the ones that expect reality or other people or the market to change to adapt to them. But just realize the rock is never going to change. So all you have control over is what you do in response to that. So take that idea, run with it, go forward and crush and climb whatever mountain you put in front of yourself. And at the end of the day, we judge people based off the mountains they choose to climb. So I encourage you, go find the biggest, hardest, most badass mountain and dedicate your life to climbing it. And if you do that, even if you don't get to the top, it's going to be a journey well worth having embarked upon. I'll see you guys in the next episode.